Led Zeppelin, gods and goddesses, and giant monsters. We're not talking about every album cover in your dad's vinyl collection. This is Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is the 2017 superhero movie directed by Taika Waititi. You'll know Taika Waititi's work from Boy, Hunt for the Wilder People, and What We Do in the Shadows. Cinematography is by the talented Javier Aguirre-Sorobe. You've seen his work in The Others, The Road, and Warm Bodies. The editor was Zine Baker, the same person who cut This Is the End, 50-50, and The Foot Fist Way. So the team behind the camera for this movie is just awesome. And the cast in front of the camera is equally as awesome. You've got Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Jeff Goldblum, Cate Blanchett, Mark Ruffalo, Idris Elba, Tessa Thompson, Carl Urban, Anthony Hopkins, Benedict Cumberbatch, and many, many, many more killer actors. So Thor and Loki are stranded on a trash planet and they're trying to get back to Asgard to save it from their evil sister Hela. That's pretty much the easiest way to explain this movie because it does have a lot more going on in it. So as you guys know, when I talk about movies, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. This movie definitely did not have any ugly in it, so I will just talk about the good and the bad. That being said, let's get to the good. I gotta say right up front, I really wish I saw this movie in theaters. This is one of those movies that once you see it, if you didn't see it in theaters, you're really gonna regret that fact. And of course, I didn't, and I do regret it. I don't laugh very much at comedies, whether they be movies or TV shows, because I'll be honest, I'm really jaded and I've seen so much stuff. Normally, the only thing that makes me laugh are like the one-camera shows or the really weird comedies that a lot of people don't like. So I was pleasantly surprised at how much this movie made me laugh out loud. I was laughing the entire time from start to finish. I was glad that I was in this office that has these really thick walls because people around the office really would have been pissed off at me for being so loud with all of my laughing. And I really didn't expect that because the first two Thor movies, they had a little bit of humor, but they were kind of flat. I mean, to me, they're like the most vanilla movies in the Marvel universe. The production and art design of this movie is top notch. There's so many sets that just look like amazing old school metal albums. 50% of the sets and the backgrounds in this movie look like all of the different album covers my dad had as a kid, and it's just kick ass. Something else that kicks ass about this movie are the effects. I mean, the green screen, the compositing, the CGI, all of it is just fantastic. I didn't see any parts where I was like, that's a little weak. I thought it was strong, again, from start to finish. Introductions, the start of the movie are always a big deal for me because they show you what the rest of the movie is going to be like. And this one, it's one of the best intros that I've ever seen. It's the best intro that I've seen since The Way of the Gun. It's not quite there, of course, because The Way of the Gun has the best intro ever made in any movie, and you can at me on that one. I watched part of the trailer, so I saw that they used Led Zeppelin in the trailer, and I thought that was really cool. Especially, I love Immigrant Song. I love Led Zeppelin in general, but I was really excited to see that in the trailer. Now, when the movie starts, they give that song to you right away during that introduction, during a really cool fight scene. That fight scene would have been cool on its own, but the fact that it had Led Zeppelin makes everything better, and it damn sure made that introduction and that fight scene way better. The intro also shows you that Thor is much more of a smartass now, and I really like that because, again, he was always kind of a vanilla character. I mean, he had a little bit of a sense of humor, but it was more like this, fish out of water, old school Shakespearean type thing. And in this one, he's just really funny, he's charming, he's layered, he's got charisma, he cares about people, but he's also really kick-ass and sarcastic, and that's awesome. And it wasn't just the fight scene in the introduction that was awesome. Every action scene, every fight in this movie is just kick-ass, and that's literally, right? They spent a long time, you can tell, choreographing these action scenes and these fights, getting the geography right so, the audience doesn't get lost. It was really nice, and so many action movies now, they just use really quick cuts. They don't care about geography, they just do coverage, and then they tell the editor, put something together. And this one, you don't have that. Everything is very well planned, and you can see that. There were so many times in this movie where I said to myself, man, I really wish a lot more Marvel movies were like this. A lot of them have a sense of humor, but not nearly the sense of humor that this one has. Maybe Guardians, but that's it. This one and Guardians of the Galaxy are the funniest in the franchise. And the thing is, they're not just the funniest, they also have a lot of heart. And the humor and action aren't the only thing that give this movie this really great energy. It has all of these amazing colors and great sets and the shot composition, the blocking, so many of the little visual jokes. It has all the stuff that most of the other MCU movies don't have. There are a ton of great cameos in this movie. These are the best cameos that I've seen since Zombieland. Thor's whole family and his friends on Asgard, they've always had this really fun, quirky dynamic, but in this movie, it's taken to like a whole nother level, especially his relationship with Loki. Not only is it deeper and it feels more natural, but it's more satisfying, and a lot of the times in the other movies you would think like, how did you fall for that? Or of course, Loki's gonna do this, but in this movie they subvert all of those expectations and they change it up, and it's really refreshing. I've always loved the way that Baker cuts a film, but in this movie I really like it. It definitely adds to the energy of the film. It's just fun and it's interesting, and as an editor I was really paying attention to that. Cate Blanchett as Hela is really tough. She looks amazing in her costume. She gives a great first impression, as does Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie. It's really nice to see strong female characters in a Marvel movie and not have a bunch of people trying to push some kind of agenda for it. They just let it flow naturally, and these two women come across as really strong and really interesting. Something else that's interesting is the planet of Sakaar, the trash planet that Thor and Loki end up on. Not only does it look great and have all these weird characters and these unique elements and all these great colors, but Jeff Goldblum is the planet's leader, and Jeff Goldblum makes everything better bar none. And playing Willy Wonka's pure imagination as they introduced Jeff Goldblum's character was really funny. It was a really nice touch. Jeff Goldblum's vibe, the vibe of the whole planet and its denizens, the way it looked, it really made me think about The Fifth Element. This is the coolest looking, most unique planet that I've seen in a sci-fi movie since The Fifth Element. Not only did Taika Waititi direct this movie, he also did some pretty fantastic voice acting in it. And that has me really excited to see his voice acting in the upcoming Disney Star Wars series, The Mandalorian. Even the exposition in the film, it never feels forced, and it's always delivered in a unique and funny way. I don't want to say how they do them because, it'd give away some of the surprises, but the way that they show you things and tell you things, and I wish that more of the Marvel movies did that. Most of the Marvel movies really spell stuff out for you, and it's kind of frustrating. And of course, there was a Stan Lee cameo in this movie, and as it did in Captain Marvel, it just made me so happy to see him in this film. Now obviously Stan Lee couldn't live forever, but it's still a very heavy loss, and it still really sucks because this guy made me happy since I was a toddler all the way up until now. And his cameo in this one and what it leads to is really fun. Hulk and Thor fighting each other was great. I was watching it on a decent sized TV with a pretty good stereo system, and it was rumbling and it looked fantastic. Lots of dynamic shots. I really enjoyed that fight. I think it's one of the best fights I've seen in a while. And seeing Thor and Hulk's dynamic change and grow was really interesting and fun too. I also like the facelift that they gave Hulk. He doesn't look so messy and sloppy and dirty and all that kind of stuff like he did look in the other movies. There's a part that you see in the trailer that looks jaw-droppingly beautiful, and it looks that way in the movie too. It's when the Valkyries are coming in on all the Pegasus or whatever, and they're gonna fight Hela. Man, that scene was just so good. I wish it had been longer. It just looks so nice, and you could tell they spent a long time in special effects and all that stuff making it look like they did. I really loved all of the creature designs, the ship designs, and again, like I said, the art and the production design of this movie. It's top notch. I really hope if there's a Thor movie, they really do something this funky with all these crazy designs again. Honestly, these writers and Taika Waititi need to team up more often, whether it's for other movies or Marvel movies or whatever. I mean, I like the Russo brothers. They're really good at taking all of these stories and combining them into one thing, and Infinity War was really cool. But for me, they're not nearly as good as James Gunn or Taika Waititi. And I know I mentioned the effects earlier, but I gotta talk about the compositing again. This is the best green screen work that I've ever seen. I do green screen work, and it can be pretty tough. And in a lot of movies, you see like a slight blur around the head, or you see little things that really make it feel off. But the green screen work, the compositing work in this movie is flawless. I didn't see one scene where I was like, it looks fake. So kudos to the people who worked on the chroma keying and the compositing and all that stuff. I really like when they pull back and they show you what Asgard looks like from a distance. It reminded me of what my friend Travis thinks the Earth looks like because he's a flat earther. Something that the Marvel movies have lost is the sense of danger and making you worry about the people outside of the superheroes, because most of the Marvel movies lately have just been about the actual heroes. and everybody else is just collateral damage, or they don't show anybody else. And in this movie, they show the people. Not only that, the people get involved in the fight, so, you really care about the people outside of the heroes for the first time in a long time. And even though the final battle did have a bunch of CGI, it didn't feel like a CGI shit show like so many other Marvel movies' final confrontations do. And I think that's because they weaved all the elements together in a cool way. Of course, you had Led Zeppelin playing, and that always helps. But, it felt more epic. It was refreshing. It was fun. It was exhilarating. It's a detail-oriented, fun-filled film that really knows when to be serious, when to be funny. So as far as being a lead-up to Infinity War, they couldn't have chosen a better movie than this one. That being said, let's get to the bad. They definitely should have done more with Hela. Make her more interesting, make her more wild, make her more off-kilter, make her more unpredictable. She was badass, she was really good at fighting, and you felt like she could really destroy people, but you didn't really feel anything beyond that. For me, she definitely felt like it could have been a better character, especially with the acting that Cate Blanchett is capable of. Not only that, Hela needed to be unpredictable and crazy and funny because the rest of the movie is that way. Even Valkyrie, she was great. She was much more interesting. She was funny. She was one of the strongest female characters in the Marvel Universe as far as the movies go. A lot of the music in this movie was very typical Marvel stuff, but on the other hand, you had all of this great 80s synthwave stuff, and man, it was just so good. And of course, that's because the guy who did it was the dude from Devo. I love Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster in this movie. He's so funny, he's slick, he's laid back. He's basically Jeff Goldblum playing Jeff Goldblum on another planet. But there's a few times where he's supposed to be angry or frustrated, and the line delivery, it wasn't bad, it was just too mellow. I really wanted to see him get more emotional and frustrated. I wanted to feel more menace from him sometimes, because he just seems too fun and laid back. Of course, he was much more interesting than Hela, but then again, Hela was much more violent and threatening than he was. I think both of them could have used a bit more tweaking, her more quirkiness, and him a bit more violence. But then again, we are talking about a Marvel movie, and the villains have really never been their strong suit outside of Thanos and Killmonger to a point, so I kind of expected that anyway. That's really it for the bad. So with all that being said, what is my score for Thor Ragnarok? Drum roll, please. 8 out of 10.